Hey everyone, welcome back to our video series here going over the CCIE version 5 lab exam. Now I already did a video about the generalizations of the lab exam, meaning what the three sections are going to be timed as, and I'll go back through them again, and I've gone through and kind of talked about what you should bring to the testing center and all that kind of stuff. And now let's actually take a dive into what our actual troubleshooting section is going to be like, what it's going to look like and feel like. So when you first sit down, as I explained before, you're going to have that icon on your desktop that says Internet Explorer icon that says Lab Exam. And again, I'm going to say it 3 times throughout all 3 videos. The doc CD, don't use it. Okay? Do not listen to any instructor that tells you to that tells you to go to the doc CD. And this is not a shot against any instructor, against any training company out there. I'm trying to be as respectful as I can be. I listened to all those folks that say, don't worry, you can just go to the doc CD. And there were things that I just said, well, you know what, rather than memorizing these 14 different commands in this particular technology, I'll just go to the doc CD. That's what they said. They said, just go to the doc CD. If you can't remember it, don't worry, just go to the doc CD. Well, guess what? I tried that and it didn't work because the doc CD is incredibly slow and half the time isn't going to work. And Cisco also likes to move around where the links are in the doc CD. So you might watch a video tomorrow and somebody may be showing you here's where this is in the doc CD, and you may take your lab 3 weeks from now and where they showed you that is maybe in a completely different spot, or it may be a broken link. There's a lot of problems within the doc CD, okay? And Cisco's not going to support them in your lab exam. So don't use the doc CD. Do yourself that favor. Great instruction, great training videos, great material is going to be able to get you there. The training lab day is not the day you want to actually start training on a new technology. Lab day is not the day for you to be going in the doc CD and trying to figure out how something works. You want to do that beforehand. So when we first sit down, we're going to double click on that Internet Explorer icon that says lab exam, right? You're going to sign in again with that ID and password that's going to be on that piece of paper that's sitting on the keyboard when you first sit down at your workstation. Once you log in, you're going to have this green button on your screen that says Begin Exam. Once you begin the exam, it's going to open up to this screen that you see here behind me. This screen is going to have your essential troubleshooting section behind you. Now, this troubleshooting section, as you see here, is going to contain anywhere from, as I said, 20 to 30 routers and anywhere from, let's say, 8 to 10 switches. Okay, there was rumor that we could see a dozen, but we haven't really seen that many. It's more like 8 to 10 switches. You might see a little bit less. So if you see less, good for you. You're that guy. But you see here that this is essentially the size of the troubleshooting topology that you're going to deal with. And I'm just going to scroll down just a little bit here to get as much of it in the screen as I can. All right. So this is essentially this huge network topology that you're dealing with. In our particular network topology, we have a Denver office, we have a call center, we have a regional office, headquarters, we have another call center down here. There's multiple different locations and they're all tied together with some kind of ISP. So we have these 3 ISP routers in the middle that are essentially connecting these offices together. So this is going to be what your troubleshooting section is going to look like and feel like in your lab exam. Now, the type of tickets you're going to have 2 different types of tickets. You're going to have tickets that are isolated, that are local to themselves. So you may have a problem within here, let's say maybe NTP, for example. Maybe, you know, this router here, BB2, is not able to get its time from router 6 up here. And so you're going to have that isolated ticket in there. But you're also going to have a ticket that may say something like router 18 all the way over here cannot see the loopback address of router 6. And that's going to be, you know, or maybe even the loopback address of BB2. And even though you may solve an NTP ticket in here that might be local to itself, meaning there's not really a lot you can mess up in that NTP ticket that's going to break this reachability through this ISP cloud. There are, however, tickets that are going to be dependent on one another. Let me explain what I mean. So you could have a ticket here that router 20 is not able to see router 17. So between these 2 different locations essentially. And you see here that I'm running EIGRP in this area and I'm running OSPF in this area up here. And so depending on how I fix these two tickets. In other words, depending on my solution for these two different tickets, obviously one here and then one here, I could also break reachability from router 18 across these ISPs, because I could maybe essentially tweak something in the IGRP that brings down this adjacency here. So we have to be careful, and I'm just making some pretty simple, pretty easy examples here, because I want you to just understand the concept. Obviously in the real lab, the troubleshooting is going to be much more difficult in how they overlay these things, how they cause you to break one ticket by manipulating another. It's going to be much more complicated than that. I'm giving you an easier example to essentially describe or explain what you should expect to see. Now, in the menu in your lab exam, so when you open up this Internet Explorer page, you still have full desktop access, so you'll still have the start menu, you'll still be able to minimize that Internet Explorer page. I mean, imagine you're on your laptop or your desktop and you open up whatever browser you use and you're looking at a web page. That's exactly the functionality of the lab. So the lab is all contained within this Internet Explorer page. Now, each one of these devices is going to be a hotspot. So when you want to gain access to a particular device, you're going to just simply click on that particular device. So I'm going to, gain access to router 7. I'm going to click on router 7. It's going to pop my telnet client, which, by the way, if you didn't watch the previous video, is basically going to be the Windows command prompt. It's not going to be a special version of PuTTY or Super PuTTY or Secure CRT. You're not going to have tabbed telnet sessions. It's going to be just a simple bare bones version of the Windows command prompt, okay? So you're going to be pretty basic here. Now, the one thing that's not in this particular screenshot, and you know what, before I get into this, I want to mention that Cisco does actually provide a live demo of this on their website through the Cisco Learning Network, and I don't remember the link. I found it once. It is a 30-minute demo of these sections, but I don't know how many of you know it's there or have found it. That's why I'm recording this video, because I'm also giving you the information that's probably not shared on that video. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but so you're going to have this timer here. Okay, and this timer is going to say 2 hours and 30 minutes by default when it starts. Okay, so this timer is going to start counting down from 2 hours and 30 minutes. So please do not get confused when you see that you have 40 minutes left. If you have not gotten that prompt that says, well, if you have 40 minutes, you haven't gotten the prompt. You actually do not have 40 minutes left. You have 10 minutes left, because once that timer hits 30, you're going to get this pop-up window right here that says, hey, you've reached your 2-hour time limit. Do you want to continue an extra 30 minutes, yes or no? You're going to have to select which one of these two options you want to pick. If you say yes and you want to continue that extra 30 minutes, remember that that 30 minutes comes out of your config section. If you will say no, then you will get the full 5 hours in config, but do not forget that the timer automatically starts counting down from 2 hours and 30 minutes. It does not start counting from 2 hours, because it counts down. So it does not start counting down from 2 hours and then gives you an extra 30 minutes. By default, it's going to start counting down from 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now, across the top of your lab exam, you're going to see a menu very similar to what I have up here. So you're going to have incidents, all incidents or questions. You're going to have important guidelines. You're going to have manage your devices, help and settings, and end session. Going backwards for a minute, your end session, pretty self-explanatory. That's going to end your troubleshooting section. Don't click that unless you're done. Okay? Help and settings, that's going to give you some helpful tips on how to navigate and how to go through some different screens. Okay? So those are those last two tabs. Let's take a look at incidents here. So I'm just going to scroll down to the next page here and try to get it lined up good. All right? So when you click on incidents, it's going to provide a drop-down box for you that gives you the 10 incidents that you're going to have. Now, what I want to point out to you is notice in the background that the main diagram does not change. The main diagram or the main lab exam in the background on that main page does not ever change. It is always there. It is always the same. Once you click incidents and it provides this drop-down box for you, you're going to be able to click on any one of these incidents in any order that you want. You can go back and forth. This is not like our CCNA exam or our CCNP exams where once you were done, you couldn't go back. You can go back and forth. It doesn't matter what order you do these in, okay? When you select a particular incident, there will be a pop-up box or a pop-up window in Internet Explorer that will show you the incident. It'll just simply say incident 1, matching the incident you've opened, and it will give you the amount of points that that incident is worth. Now, in this window, this diagram here is not clickable, meaning you cannot click on these devices in here and pop that telnet session. You have to minimize or close this pop-up window here, go back to the main diagram in order to open those devices. When this window pops up, Cisco is very nice, and they have given you what devices essentially you don't care about. So what they're saying is, hey, in this particular incident, this particular router is having reachability problems or having a particular technology problem, and this area here is where we want you to concentrate your efforts. This area here is where the problem is. Ignore everything else in here. It doesn't matter. So Cisco's been very nice to us in giving us this grayed out or shaded area, okay? Now, when we're in our lab, what we need to realize and we need to focus on is, you guys may not be able to read it very clearly, but Cisco's going to give us essentially what they want here in the ticket. They're going to say that when you run this command, it should work. So here it's saying, hey, when we run a TFTP command, we should see that we're actually able to copy our configuration, all right? So not very difficult output to match here, but essentially Cisco's going to give you in every ticket what you should be able to do. In other words, what they want to see actually working. You have to be very, very detailed in what they ask you to get working. If they ask you to get something working exactly like this, and they give you an output that has, let's say, OSPF, and you look at a specific prefix in OSPF and it's got a specific metric or administrative distance or something on that particular prefix, you had better make sure that you match it. If you go and you look at your OSPF database and certain routes are coming in as certain LSA types, and you have to make sure that you match the output identically. You cannot move on unless it's matching perfectly. You will not get the points for that ticket unless it's matching perfectly. Now, there's some caveats to that. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to manage my uptime in BGP when I look at my BGP neighbors, and Cisco knows that. But you're going to need to match the amount of prefixes that you're getting, for example, okay? So you're going to have to match this. So this is an example ticket that we're going to have under the incidents. Now, each one of these tickets is going to be worth a certain number of points. So we're going to have 2 points, 2 points, 4 points, 2 points, 2 points, 4 points, and the rest are going to be all 2s. All right, so you're going to have 10 tickets total. You're going to have 2 of them be 4 points. So I'm going to write right here, I'm going to say 2 are going to be 4 pointers. And the rest, 8 of them, are going to be 2 pointers. Okay, this gives us a total of 24 points. Okay, now Cisco has not revealed to anybody what the math is here. In other words, what's the minimum score that you can get to pass? So how I've worked this out is that we can get minus 1 4-pointer or 2 2-pointers and still pass. If you get less than that, it's going to get a little bit iffy. So what I would recommend to you is don't go in there with the minimum mindset. Don't go in saying, I'm going to get the bare minimum. I'm just going to make sure that I get 8 tickets and I'll pass. No, go in there with the mindset that you're going to pass all 10 tickets, that you're going to get through this thing. You're a CCIE. You're going to throw this exam a beating. Okay, so don't go in there with the minimum mindset, with the mindset of, wow, what's the minimum amount of tickets I can get to pass? If you go in there with that mindset, you're already failing. Okay. So once you click on incidents, it'll bring up the ticket. Then you can minimize this and you can go back to your main topology exam up here. You can click on any one of these devices in here and then you can go ahead and you can solve that ticket. When you're done with that ticket, every ticket that you're done, you should write your configurations before you move on, because you don't know what next ticket is going to be dependent on that ticket you just solved, and you could mess it up. You don't want to lose the points for the ticket you've already solved, and so you want to be able to essentially just reload that router, which you can do, and bring back your working ticket. Next, after the incidents button, we're going to have what we call the all questions or the all incidents. Sorry for the scroll there, I just want to get it lined up. So we're going to have the all incidents or the all questions. That is essentially going to give you all of the incidents laid out in one long page. All right, so you're going to be able to get some idea of how these incidents are all going to relate to one another. So that is an option that you can have in order to kind of get your bearings, kind of get what ticket am I going to solve first or am I going to look at first, okay? Now, what I did when I took this exam is, let's say that in this topology here, I had to deal with all of these devices. I opened up all of the devices in the telnet sessions in order. So I went switch 7, switch 8, then I went router 16, 17, 18, and 20, so that all of my devices were open in numerical order. That way it was easier for me to just find and hone in on those devices, because if I'm troubleshooting a reachability problem between BB2, switch 2, router 6, router 3, ISP 1, 2, 3, and then router 18, and essentially throughout the rest of this network, I don't want to have all these things in random order. I want to try to have them in some kind of order where it's easy for me to just hone in on that exact telnet session that I'm looking for. Or you can just close it when you're done, or when you've looked at something and you don't believe it's the problem. You can do that as well. Under the under the important troubleshooting and guidelines, here's where I like to call this the don't be stupid message. Right here is a direct quote from that video I said that Cisco has on their Learning Network website. This essentially says, do not remove any feature that is configured in order to resolve an incident. You must resolve the misconfiguration rather than removing it. Cisco has put in things to purposely break your network topology, to break that particular ticket. They don't want you just going in there and ripping out random things. They want you to actually fix what's broken. Let me explain. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I'm not getting a BGP peering between two adjacent routers. And I go onto that interface and I see that there's an access list applied that's blocking port 179. Now, we're not going to get into all the technicalities of that, just hypothetically speaking, right? So I have an access list that says ACL1 deny BGP, and then I have then the next line says ACL1 permit any. The wrong way to fix that would be to just remove the deny statement, leaving access list 1 permit any. That would be the wrong way to fix it. The right way to fix it would be to remove the access list, to say access list 1 permit BGP, and then access list 1 permit any. Now, does that make any sense for the real world? No, not at all. But Cisco wants to ensure that you can actually fix the individual problem or the actual issue of what's broken. They don't want you to just go in and rip it out. Now, do I expect you're going to see an access list like that? No, not at all, because again, it doesn't make any sense. I'm using that access list to illustrate to you the fact that you need to actually fix the problem. So if there is an access list applied to an interface, and that's what's breaking or causing the problem, that's what's breaking the technology, you cannot just remove the access list. You have to fix it. All right, so you're going to have to know, for example, what ports need to traverse that access list. You may need to set up some kind of logging to figure it out. You're going to have to be able to fix that ACL. This is how we solve these tickets. And again, Cisco's given you this bullet point right here. Don't remove anything. You have to actually fix the problem. Okay, but that's going to be found in your important troubleshooting and guidelines. Manage devices. Manage devices. This tab here is going to be where you can actually essentially control your gear, control your devices. So you're going to have all of your devices listed in your topology. Those of you guys that are familiar with our Proctor Labs website, you can tell this is just almost a print screen from that, and it is. So in the Manage Devices website, you're going to be able to console into all of your gear at once. So if you don't want to click on the hotspots that are in this background diagram here, so if I don't want to go and click on every single one of these and go, you know, what this will do is this will actually put it out in numerical order for me, so I can just go down the line and click on console, click on console. If I have a problem with a device and I need to power cycle it, I can go into Manage Devices, I can click Power Cycle. This is also where it's going to tell me whether those devices are powered on or off. The last thing I can do is I can say clear line, so if I lose connection randomly to that device, I can go in and say I want to clear the telnet line to that device so that I can get back into it. The one thing that you're not going to have is the revert option. So if you mess up your lab so bad to the point of where there's no recovery, you are not, at least last time when I took my lab, they may have added it, but you are not going to have a revert option to essentially say I want to bring my whole lab back to where it was before. That is not an option for you. So you want to make sure that you take the precautions to be able to bring back those devices should you mess them up to that point of no recovery. All right. But overall, this is going to be your troubleshooting section. Again, 2.5 hours. Every one of these is going to be your hotspot. This is going to be done in Internet Explorer. Just exactly how you see it behind me here is very, very similar to how that page is going to be laid out, all right? The topology between troubleshooting and configuration is different. So you are not going to have the same topology that you see here in your configuration section. You'll have the same device types, the same device names. You'll have maybe a topology that's somewhat similar, because remember, we're testing the same technologies, right? We're still looking at MPBGP, Layer 3 VPN, we're still looking at DMVPN, but they're going to be laid out differently, which, by the way, brings me to my last tip. If you're troubleshooting a technology in the troubleshooting lab, in the troubleshooting section, and you get it fixed, you get it working, let's say it's DMVPN, it's kind of my favorite to pick on. You get the DMVPN working, okay? Regardless whether you know how to do a DMVPN or not, regardless whether it's something you struggle with or you're fantastic at, let's face it, nobody wants to type a dozen commands 3 or 4 different times. You can take the running configuration from that DMVPN configuration in the troubleshooting section, copy it off to Notepad, and leave it there so that when you get to your config section, all you need to do is tweak that template that you took in and essentially saved from troubleshooting. All you need to do is tweak it to the specifications required in your config section. Cisco will allow you to do that because it still shows that you know what you're doing. So that's your helpful tip. I hope this video was informative, and I'll see you in the diag section.